Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to the press conference of the informal video conference of health ministers. We have here with us in Lisbon, Minister Temido, the Portuguese health minister. We have in Brussels, Vice-President Margaritis Schinas and Commissioner Kyriakides. First of all, I'll give the floor to Minister Temido.
Muito boa tarde a todos, muito obrigada pela presença. Terminou há momentos mais uma reunião informal de Ministros da Saúde da União Europeia, que teve a presença do Sr. Vice-Presidente Margaritis Schinas e da Sra. Comissária Stella Kyriakides. Estiveram também connosco o Centro Europeu de Prevenção e Controlo de Doenças, a Agência Europeia do Medicamento e participantes de vários dos diversos Estados-membros. Os tópicos da agenda desta reunião foram essencialmente três. O primeiro consistiu na discussão das variantes atualmente em circulação nos nossos países da SARS-CoV-2 e das várias estratégias essenciais para a sua detecção precoce, para a sua sequenciação genética e para a sua contenção. O segundo tópico da agenda incidiu sobre o tema das estratégias de teste. Vários Estados-membros referiram aquilo que têm sido as suas abordagens em relação aos vários tipos de teste existentes no mercado e os vários públicos-alvo nos quais cada um deles pode ser aplicado, abordando as experiências realizadas em cada país a este nível e também as perspectivas futuras. A importância de se obter uma orientação uniforme e coordenada ao nível dos diversos Estados-membros foi também sublinhada relativamente a este tema. O último tópico, o terceiro tópico abordado foi, como não podia deixar de ser, a implementação dos planos nacionais de vacinação, com os diversos países a identificarem a necessidade de, conjuntamente, acelerarmos o alinhamento entre aquilo que foi a resposta da ciência e aquilo que é agora também a resposta da indústria, no sentido de que os contratos celebrados pela Comissão possam ser cumpridos, garantindo a mais rápida possível implementação dos planos nacionais de vacinação e, concretamente, o alcançar dos objetivos que assumimos em conjunto, que até ao final de março 80% das pessoas com mais de 80 anos e 80% dos profissionais de saúde ou profissionais de apoio aos profissionais de saúde na área social estejam vacinados e que no final do verão 70% da população da União Europeia esteja vacinada. Neste contexto foi também abordado por vários Estados o tema dos certificados de vacinação e de outros documentos úteis ao reconhecimento mútuo do estado de saúde de cada cidadão da União Europeia. Muito obrigada.
Okay, Vice-President Margaritis Schinas, please.
Thank you, Minister. Dear Marta, dear Stella, this was a very timely council that came immediately after the meeting of our heads of state and government last Thursday. And it's also very timely because more or less we are 1 year since the first COVID cases were detected in Europe. Let me start with a wish. I really wish that this was the first and the last full year of pandemic in Europe. The end of the pandemic is at sight, but not yet at reach. And today, with ministers, we were able to detect a very strong sense of unity and communality of purpose. I would like briefly to cover two issues. First, the areas around vaccination, how we get vaccines in time and in quantity, and then on how we organize the mobility and the safe opening of Europe also in view of summer. On vaccination, Commissioner Kyriakides will offer you more detail. What I want to say is that for me, one thing is crystal clear, that the European Union vaccine strategy showed the power of European collaboration and of European solidarity in action. Coordination is our compass, and improvisation and incoherence are not part of our course of action. Today, of course, a key issue in the overall strategy is the issue of variants, where we definitely need to adapt, adjust, prepare, and front-load many of the efforts we had planned. And this is why 2 weeks ago, we put forward, together with the Commissioner, the so-called HERA incubator, which is a plan that allows us to meet the dual challenge of addressing the variants and increasing our vaccine production capacity. We discussed extensively with the ministers on that. But besides vaccination, our eyes must go towards the lifting of restrictions. And we need to give a reliable perspective to our people and to our businesses. And the crucial aspect here is, of course, tourism and travel, as discussed also by the European Council leaders last Thursday. While non-essential mobility should still be discouraged, in the current circumstances, restrictions on free movement need to be carefully calibrated and justified. It is perfectly normal and reasonable that our member states take measures to protect our citizens, but the accumulation of these restrictions across the single market without close coordination risks creating problems and disruptions to our supply chains, which are essential. And the need to preserve a minimum of mobility and the green lines is one example in that respect. Another connected issue, also discussed by our leaders at length, and also today, to some extent with the ministers, which is very high in the public debate, is the potential of vaccination certificates as a tool to manage the pandemic. Heads of state and government last Thursday agreed to continue work on a common approach, which requires intensive technical specifications to make it happen. We also need closely and carefully to look at ways of using such a tool to facilitate mobility whilst avoiding discrimination among citizens. We here at the Commission will continue to support this process ahead of the next meeting of our leaders. We will also continue our collaboration with international organizations to ensure that these measures are also compatible beyond the EU, not only within our borders. And to bring all these elements together, we can confirm that we will present a package for adoption on the 17th of March, focusing on travel and lifting of restrictions. The aim would be to set a common direction towards Europe's safe opening. And let me stress equally both words, safe and opening, as we want a sustained process, a process that will preserve fully the enormous efforts and sacrifices of Europeans, of all Europeans, during these past months. As the pandemic evolves and new concerns arise, Europe has today reconfirmed our willingness to pull together, not apart. We all have a stake, a common interest in finding solutions and arrive all together sooner or later to the end of the tunnel. I would like to wish Minister Temido and the Portuguese presidency every success in this very challenging presidency. I'm sure that this would be a very European presidency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Commissioner Kyriakides, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We had, as Vice President Schinas and Minister Temido has said, a very important and timely discussion today with the health ministers following up the last week's European Council. It's now, of course, more than 13 months since the first case of COVID-19 was detected in the EU. And we firmly believe that our fight against this virus this past year has brought us closer together, and we have seen an unprecedented level of cooperation, coordination in the area of health. It's also been, I think, clear that without solidarity or European-wide solutions, we cannot effectively deal with public health emergencies. And this is a message that I had shared a year ago, and it is, of course, as relevant today. We are faced with new challenges. Whilst vaccination rollouts are increasing, different variants are also spreading across the EU and are now present in most member states, with the potential to lead to more severe disease and increase in hospitalizations. And of course, this is a great concern to us all. We need to remain extremely vigilant, to act very quickly, and significantly increase our capacity to detect these variants. We need to ensure that vaccination progresses as quickly as possible, and to really be one step ahead when it comes to adapting and stepping up the production of new vaccines if this is needed in order to deal with them. With the support of all the member states and of course the European Parliament, I'm confident that we will see a strong European health union emerging out of this crisis, and that in the longer term we will be better prepared to prevent and respond to future health crises. But today what we need to do is really increase and step up our actions immediately. We need to be decisive and to work collectively. Firstly, through the HERA incubator, we are increasing our support on sequencing to member states in order that they are able to reach the target of 5 to 10%. We're doing through providing over 200 million euro in funding. We are aware that not all member states have the sufficient capacity for sequencing, and this is why we need to support them as much as possible. And to do this, ECDC has started sending samples from member states with a low capacity to laboratories. In the coming weeks, a second contract will be signed, providing for a basic minimum level of sequencing for those member states who do not have the sufficient capacities. Today, I also called on ministers to make more use of wastewater surveillance as another tool to speed up the detection of variants. And we will soon be presenting a recommendation on this. Additionally, multiple PCR tests are an important tool that needs to be used. Secondly, we had a discussion on how to improve national testing strategies. We now have a common list of COVID-19 rapid antigen tests, a set of tests for which member states will mutually recognize results. And this is extremely important for us to be able to work together. And the common standardized set of data to be included in COVID-19 result test certificates. The EU framework is there for member states to use and to ensure that the tests that are issued in one member state are also valid in another member state. And this is extremely important, and another angle of what Vice-President Schinas has already mentioned in the area of traveling. It will become even more crucial as we progress on the work of vaccination certificates, where this could be a feature included for the purpose of facilitating the easing of restrictions and avoiding discrimination. Now, since more tests are needed, we are purchasing over 20 million rapid antigen tests for delivery by April to member states, using 100 million euro from the emergency support instrument. And in parallel, we have launched a joint procurement exercise for rapid antigen tests so that we can deliver more than 550 million in the coming months if the member states, of course, make use of it. Finally, on vaccines, I have called on member states to increase the information on sharing on national vaccination rollout plans and share this data on vaccinations with ECDC. It is extremely important that we do this on a very regular basis. Vaccine deliveries will increase significantly over the coming months. A fourth vaccine, we're expecting the European Medicines Agency scientific appraisal in the coming weeks, but vaccine rollouts must follow as well, so that there are no gaps and that no vaccines are left unused. We need to be able to support this. We need the information and the exchange of data. And we're putting all our efforts as a Commission in speeding up vaccine development, assessment, authorization and availability, including more flexible procedures through the HERA incubator. The industrial task force of the European Commission is working full steam to maximize the manufacturing capacity of vaccines, and we stand ready, if needed, to negotiate new or adjusted advanced purchase agreements for vaccines against variants. In ending, I just want to say that today, 1 year on, COVID-19 is no longer an unknown virus. We have a wealth of information of its pathology. We are now facing the mutations and the changing virus, and it is another challenge that we're all called to work together in. And the only way to work together towards addressing these challenges are in solidarity. So once again, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now open the floor to questions. We already have some raised hands in the Zoom session, but I'll give the first question here to our room in Lisbon, to RTP, please.
Obrigado, thank you. Tiago Contreiras, da RTP, boa tarde. Eu gostaria de começar pelo chamado passaporte Covid, talvez para o Sr. Vice-Presidente. Como é que pode garantir que este mecanismo estará em vigor no final deste mês, como pretende a Presidente da Comissão Europeia, e também se existe consenso nos Estados-membros para que este passaporte entre em vigor rapidamente, se também existirem algumas novidades sobre o levantamento das restrições, gostaria também de ouvir sobre essa matéria. Para a Senhora Comissária, eu gostaria de saber de que forma é possível acelerar o processo de vacinação, que é uma ambição de toda a União e tem sido também um sublinhado feito pelos chefes de governo. Para a Ministra da Saúde, de que forma Portugal pode também agilizar este processo de criação do passaporte Covid e também que garantias tem de obtenção das tais 38 milhões de vacinas, que é a ambição do país nesta fase do processo. Obrigado.
Okay, I'll give the floor to Minister Temido first, and then Vice-President Schinas, and then Commissioner Kyriakides. Minister Temido.
Obrigada. Quanto à questão dos aspectos relacionados com as quantidades contratadas por Portugal em termos de vacinas, como temos referido, aquilo que resulta da participação do nosso país, de outros países, num conjunto de compras coordenadas pela Comissão, é neste momento um total de vacinas, de doses de vacinas, que ultrapassa as 38 milhões de doses. Mas é importante sublinhar que esse total de quantidades que poderá ser disponibilizado depende daquilo que é depois a capacidade industrial de entrega de quantidades. E aquilo que temos verificado é que há algum desalinhamento entre quantidades contratadas e a entrega, a disponibilidade de vacinas, pelo menos em termos de calendário. Não quer dizer que as companhias farmacêuticas não afirmem e não assegurem que procederão aos ajustamentos necessários no tempo, mas tem havido esse delay, esse atraso em relação àquilo que são as quantidades contratadas. Portanto, aquilo que se pode assegurar é que manteremos o trabalho conjunto. Aliás, esta reunião de hoje foi mais uma prova desse trabalho conjunto. Manteremos o trabalho conjunto com as várias instâncias, designadamente com a Comissão, com o Vice-Presidente Schinas, com a Comissária Kyriakides, também com o Comissário Breton, no sentido de conseguirmos garantir que os contratos que foram assinados são pontualmente cumpridos e que isso é garantido não só para o nosso país, como pretende o Ministério da Saúde, mas concretamente também para todos os Estados-membros, como é a nossa função agora enquanto Presidência da União. Muito obrigada.
Okay. Vice-President Schinas, please.
Yes, on the question of certificates, we are living extraordinary times, and in extraordinary times, we need to mobilize extraordinary tools. We need to make sure that Europe leads in key areas of managing the pandemic in a way that does not impose on us choices decided elsewhere. So already the Commissioner and I in our communication of 19th of January had already identified very early on the need for more coordination on the issues of vaccine certificates. We're delighted now that there is convergence amongst the European leaders last week on the need to carry and accelerate this work. There is a group now actively working on the various aspects of these green passes, a group composed by my colleagues, Stella Kyriakides, Thierry Breton, Didier Reinders, Silva Johansson, myself. So we are dealing with this from all possible angles. Our ambition, as the President herself announced, is to be ready in time for the next meeting of the European Council. We have penciled in the date of 17th of March. This will be a legal proposal. It would have a strong digital component, and of course, our overall overarching priority would be to have a set of information that would pertain not only to whether one has been vaccinated or not, but also at other categories of information to avoid discrimination, such as statements of recovery, test results. The idea would be for this European form to be interoperable and recognized. And we are working now 24/7 also to ensure the so-called trust standards around these projects, namely to ensure that they would respect fully our rules on data protection, security, and privacy. So this is where we are, and this strand of work, we in the Commission would be ready in time, in March, so as for the final decisions to intervene well ahead the next mobility season of the summer.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kyriakides, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to touch on one or 2 points. Of course, first of all, we all know that we now have 3 approved vaccines, and we are expecting the production and the deliveries to be increasing over the coming weeks or months. We are also waiting for the assessment of a 4th vaccine in the coming weeks. As of today, almost 33 million doses have been administered, and a number of almost 11 million Europeans have been fully vaccinated. Vaccinations, of course, depend on having these vaccines and a steady stream of vaccines, as Minister Temido said, delivered, and we are working very closely through the European Commission's Industrial Task Force and with Commissioner Breton, of course, Vice President Schinas, with the member states, with EMA, with the companies in order to maximize vaccine manufacturing capacity and to have up-to-date delivery schedules. So we have also been working, and I wanted to say this, with member states launching a joint procurement for equipment needed for COVID-19 vaccinations. So contracts have been signed, for example, so that they can order needles, syringes, and other essential equipment. We've been working through ECDC and the Health Security Committee for the last few months on the exchanges of good practice on how vaccination plans can be rolled out more effectively, and we are further ready to support member states for this. I think what it is very important here is to look at the 2 strands. First of all, that we are all working in order to increase manufacturing and production and delivery, and in parallel, we need to ensure that the vaccines are administered as quickly as possible so that the vaccination rollout plans leave no vaccines go to waste or are unused. We are very aware of the challenges faced in member states around the production capacity, but we are also facing a situation now with the variants, which makes it even more important that member states work together with the Commission and with ECDC to ensure that we reach, that we roll out vaccinations as quickly as possible. And for this reason, this was an extremely important informal health council that we had today, because we were able to exchange many ideas on how we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now second question for David Carretta from Il Foglio, please.
Yes, thank you very much. David Carretta, Radio Radicale and Il Foglio, to Italian media. A first question to Vice President Schinas. There is a narrative in some member states, for example, today, the main newspaper of my country, Italy, on the failure of Europe. How do you respond to this narrative? A second question, both to the Minister and to Commissioner Kyriakides. There are millions of doses of vaccines, especially AstraZeneca, unused in this moment in the EU. How do you explain that? Is the bottleneck right now in the member states? And if yes, why? Last question to Commissioner Kyriakides. Have you received any guarantee by AstraZeneca on the 180 million doses that the company should deliver in the second quarter? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Minister Temido, please, you have the floor.
Muito obrigada. A questão que enfrentamos, sempre o soubemos, não era apenas a de dispor de uma vacina segura e eficaz, era também a de dispor de uma vacina que estivesse utilizável nas quantidades suficientes para a vacinação de largas quantidades de pessoas, mas também a questão da sua adequação a vários tipos populacionais. Neste momento, aquilo que precisamos de fazer, como já foi referido pela Comissária Kyriakides, é não só garantir o aumento da capacidade industrial para a produção de vacinas, mas também garantir que cada um dos nossos países tem a capacidade suficiente para a implementação dos seus planos de vacinação. Naturalmente que a circunstância de uma das vacinas de que dispomos hoje no mercado, a vacina da companhia AstraZeneca, ter ainda resultados limitados acima dos 65 anos de idade, nos colocou um problema adicional. Aguardamos, portanto, com expectativa sobre aquilo que é mais informação sobre a possibilidade de uma utilização igualmente efetiva dessa vacina noutras faixas etárias e adaptamos o nosso processo, o nosso procedimento, os nossos planos de vacinação para a utilização destas vacinas noutras populações. Muito obrigada.
Okay. Vice-President Schinas, please.
Cada um dos nossos países tem a capacidade.
I can come in now on the on the narratives. I would prefer to comment on facts rather than narratives. And the fact of the matter is that the European Union vaccine strategy is a success. The story, the full story, of course, and the full assessment will be told at the end of the process. Some of the people, for other reasons, and some of the critics attempted to offer a judgment in the early weeks of a vast program, the biggest program of its kind ever to be deployed in Europe, on the basis of a delay that pertained to one of the companies with which we had the contractual relations, and which they informed us rather abruptly that they could not honor the contractual commitments and obligations due to capacity problems. Since then, the situation has been improving constantly. And now I think we're reaching a stage where the center of gravity is rather more on the implementation of the European program in the member states rather on the program itself. This is a mass program. We have bought 2.6 billion doses, so almost more than 25% of the global capacity. We have assured that all Europeans would have access under the same conditions across the geography of the European Union. We have prevented a nightmare scenario of vaccine nationalism where without the European framework, there would be all-out competition between the big and the small member states on who gets what on what price. And I think now we're reaching a stage that in very shortly, in few months, we will not only have the coverage of the universal coverage of all European population, but we would also be able to help others with vaccines. So overall, I think those of us who took a more encouraging and positive look of the program and waited to judge it down the road would be vindicated rather than the ones who rushed to offer a judgment in the very early stage of the process.
Commissioner Kyriakides, please.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to echo what Vice President Schinas had said, and to say that in the Health Ministers' Council, informal council that we had today, that there was an overall support of the European Commission's vaccine strategy and of working together and moving forward together. So I think that this is something that we need to also hold on to. The question to do with AstraZeneca, first of all, let me just say that AstraZeneca is a vaccine that has been authorized, given conditional marketing authorization with the European Medicines Agency after very careful scientific scrutiny. It has been approved to be used. We know that it is a vaccine that is effective from the EMA assessment of decreasing the severe disease and also hospitalizations. On commenting on the number of unused doses, I would think that this could be used possibly due to holding back a second dose, which could be part of the planning of vaccination plans, but also could be due to vaccine hesitancy. And this is something that I think it is important that is addressed at member states level. For the question you asked about the production and delivery capacity issues of AstraZeneca, we are taking all the announcements that AstraZeneca is about production and delivery capacity issues extremely seriously. We are ongoing discussions with the European Commission's Industrial Task Force with AstraZeneca. We stress continuously that the company needs to deliver what it has contractually obliged, and we expect to have full transparency on this matter. And we, of course, continue to work very closely with them in order to ensure that they keep up on this commitment. Thank you.
Okay, now a question for Susana Freixas.
Hello, Susana Freixas, SIC Expresso. For Vice President, I would like to ask you, is this digital green pass some kind of, or a kind of end of free movement of people officially? Because we would like to understand if this is temporary or if this is going to last, I don't know how long. And is this work only for red zones, or it should also be applied to the so-called green zones? And actually, how is the Commission going to avoid all the bureaucracy? And if I may, do you plan to also to talk with the tourism sector? For Commissioner Kyriakides, if I may, because if you can clarify, how many doses do you expect to receive in terms of European Union in the second quarter, because so far the Commission has been talking about 300 million, but according to the slides that were presented last week, there are some millions of doses that are not confirmed, so I would like to understand how many are we talking now. E para a senhora Ministra da Saúde, se fosse possível, também gostaria de perceber, primeiro, como é que pretende chamar em português a este Digital Green Pass? É um livre trânsito, é um passaporte, é exatamente o quê? Se Portugal pretende aplicá-lo a todos os países da União Europeia, por exemplo, no ano passado não houve este tipo de restrições, pronto, à exceção das ilhas, mas para o continente não houve, no verão. Se também pretende falar com o setor do turismo, e já agora em relação aos 38 milhões de doses de vacinas, quantos milhões no segundo e no terceiro trimestre? Obrigada.
Relativamente às doses de vacinas para entrega no segundo e no terceiro trimestre, depois dar-lhe os números, visto que não os tenho aqui comigo. Relativamente à questão que coloca sobre um certificado de vacinação, a designação será naturalmente uma designação que seja inteligível por todos os países que tiverem este mecanismo, e aquilo que é importante referir é que hoje, mais do que nunca, impõe-se uma abordagem comum naquilo que são os movimentos dos nossos cidadãos, dos movimentos em segurança dos nossos cidadãos, desde logo no espaço das nossas fronteiras internas, também quando consideramos as fronteiras externas da União, essa deverá ser uma preocupação. Claro que um dos aspectos que um documento desse tipo pode referir é o estado vacinal, a circunstância de a pessoa ter já tido ou não uma vacina, mas poderá referir outras informações importantes, informações quanto à circunstância de se ter sido submetido a um teste e o resultado do teste, ou informação sobre se a pessoa já teve Covid-19. No fundo, temos que considerar este instrumento, e é importante que se diga que se trata de um instrumento, como mais um utensílio que nos permite enfrentar aquilo que é um mundo onde a Covid-19 circula como doença e onde queremos retomar a normalidade das nossas vidas nas melhores condições possíveis. Muito obrigada.
Okay, Vice-President Schinas, please.
Yes, Susanna, there are, of course, you will understand that there are certain things that we cannot discuss today. Today we're the 1st of March and the proposal is due on the 17th of March. So we still have quite a lot of work ahead of us. And I wouldn't like to prejudge now on behalf of the group of commissioners and of the college what the end product would be. But I think we can reasonably explain, first of all, the concept behind this, which is very much in line with what the European Council asked us to do. It is now for us, for the Commission, to present a product which would be a European product, which would have the same amount of information on certain key aspects, like vaccination or not, test results, statements of recovery, that is security proof, that respects our GDPR legislation on data protection, that has all the security guarantees in it. And of course, this is a legislative proposal, as I was saying before, so this is not something which would be optional. It would be something that we will put on the table in terms of a legal instrument on the base of the legal basis of the treaty of free movement. And then once this product is elaborated, if you like, according to all these criteria, then it will be submitted to the member states. We'll meet in the European Council of the 25th of March, if I'm not mistaken with the date, which I think I'm not. And then on the basis of this, the next step will be taken to organize properly the mobility. Let me add I think I said it at the beginning, but I would like to repeat it now, that we are very much aware of the enormous efforts and sacrifices of all Europeans during this horrible year behind us. And under no circumstances we would produce this work, will progress with work in a way that would not respect this requirement. So this is precisely to organize safe opening, not just opening. So trust us on that. I hope that you will see when we are ready. And then, of course, as I said, this is the first step. The second step would be, as the Minister said, a European framing of this initiative, because in Europe, we do need for these questions a common European frame.
Okay, Commissioner Kyriakides, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, as you know, we have set a target of 300 million doses for Q2. I think it is important here to say that with the vaccine doses that have already arrived and with those that will arrive, we will have more than enough doses to vaccinate 70% of the adult population in the EU by summer, as per the target that has been set. And also that what is now going to be really the biggest challenge and what we need to address is to move from the vaccine production to the vaccine rollout in member states over the coming months. Thank you.
Okay, and now last question to Philip Blekkinson from Reuters, please. Philip?
Hello, yes, Philip Blekkinson.
Your
Just a
sound...
question to the Minister.
Wait, Philip, we are not hearing you well at all. I don't know if you can do something about that.
Oh, well, let me see. Can you hear me now?
Better, yeah.
Hello? Well, I'll try and ask my question. It's Philip Blekkinson from Reuters here. I wanted to ask, in terms of the vaccine passports, is it fair to say it's only going to work if you establish that people who have been vaccinated cannot transmit the virus to other people? And as it currently stands, that's not the case. I also wanted to ask if indeed vaccination is sufficient for travel in future, will that not inevitably be discriminatory or at least unfair in the sense that people who haven't had a vaccine, whether because they didn't want one or because they couldn't get one, will have to do some other, will have to kind of prove they are fit for travel in some other way, whether it be through testing or quarantines.
Okay, Minister Temido, please.
Muito obrigada. Aproveito para dar número que me foi perguntado pela colega anterior sobre as vacinas que Portugal iria tem contratadas no segundo e terceiro trimestre de 2021. São 11 milhões no segundo trimestre e 10 no terceiro trimestre. Peço desculpa. Relativamente a esta questão que agora é colocada, quando olhamos para o resultado de um teste, quando olhamos para o resultado de uma vacina administrada, ou mesmo para a circunstância de alguém ter estado doente, temos que olhar para essa informação com aquilo que sabemos ser ainda a imprevisibilidade que temos relativamente ao conhecimento sobre esta doença, que é uma nova doença, que é a Covid-19. Portugal registrou, faz amanhã um ano, os primeiros 2 casos de Covid-19. Ao longo destes 12 meses, aprendemos muito sobre aquilo que é esta nova doença, mas temos consciência de que ainda não sabemos tudo. E os aspectos relacionados com a imunidade conferida pela vacina, pelas diversas vacinas, o período da sua duração e outros aspectos carecem ainda de estudos mais aprofundados. Isso decorre do facto de o processo normal de desenvolvimento de um medicamento ter sido, nestes casos, um processo acelerado, que é agora acompanhado de uma forma muito cuidadosa e com enormes cuidados para manter a segurança deste processo de uma forma ainda mais estreita do que o habitual. Relativamente àquilo que são os diferentes acessos à vacinação. É exatamente por a Europa partilhar uma perspectiva de que só estaremos seguros contra a Covid-19 quando todos estivermos seguros, que adotamos mecanismos como a COVAX, para a qual a União Europeia tem sido um dos principais contribuidores. E, como tal, acreditamos que a questão das iniquidades que neste momento ainda existe é um processo relativamente ao qual temos que continuar a trabalhar. Obrigada.
Thank you very much, Minister Temido. Now, Vice-President Schinas, please.
Well, I think I will repeat myself when I say that we start by delivering what we have been asked to by the European Council on a need to organize Europe around something that makes sense for all. If we don't do this collectively and on a common basis, other solutions will prevail, bilateral solutions will emerge, technologically diverse solutions will surface, and that will fragment our markets and the unicity of our system. So I think we are now preparing a European tool, a European instrument, including very objective data and the necessary trust perimeter around this data. And once this European product is available, then member states would have the opportunity to decide its precise use. But I fail to see why deciding collectively on a specific set of uses of a product which is common to all would be discriminatory. Already before the pandemic, in normal times, certain travels in certain parts of the world were conditional on vaccination and on producing evidence of vaccination. This is not to discriminate against anyone. This is simply to organize on a joint basis under a common system the way we organize safe mobility once the pandemic withdraws in intensity.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister Temido, Vice President Schinas, Commissioner Kyriakides. Thank you, dear journalists, for attending this press conference, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.